Who do you emulate? Ritesh the person.
Who do I emulate?
We all pick someone and do it, consciously and subconsciously.
I think as a business person, somebody who, at least over the last 5 years, when I said that I tried to transform myself, especially with the onset of COVID or around that period, 4 years maybe, I think that is Uday KOTAK. I feel like he's one of those people, again, first generation entrepreneur. Most people don't recognize, built a bank, first generation.
He's king of delaying gratification.
Yeah, and you sit with him in the room, there is a sense of calm, right? Like, and every time he begins in classic Gujarati saying, "Paise aa gaye, sab account mein rakh liya, sab abhi theek chal raha hai." So he, like, there's just a sense of when you begin the discussions with him, there's a sense of like the world may be burning. And he will represent that in words, but he would not emote it in actions, right?
I agree with you 100%. But if you have to derive something from this for a 21-year-old we are talking to today, what do you think people like Uday KOTAK, his generation, had that the 21-year-old today is lacking, which is relevant to the world of today?
I would say 3 things. The first one is being absolutely comfortable to make sure that when your friends are sharing beautiful Instagram stories of going to pubs, restaurants, or very exciting places, you are pursuing things which are not exciting. And you sort of tend to believe that it is because of your circumstances.
Would you say that's delaying gratification?
That's delaying gratification. But I'm just trying to put it in...
Going to a pub is instant pleasure center.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's a psychologist who said a very interesting thing. What is the difference between pleasure and enjoyment? Pleasure is having that piece of chocolate which has sugar in it. Pleasure is having a beer maybe. Pleasure becomes enjoyment when there is a gap between 2 pleasurable events and you add memory to it. Memory happens by virtue of adding a group around it.
Yeah, no, I think this, the other way to put it is if you look at, there's this Netflix documentary, which is, I think it's called the Blue Lines or Blue Zones. Blue Zones, right? Which talks about longevity. Yeah. And longevity has something similar, which talks about a sense of community, happiness, but at the same time making sure that your food habits, etc., are sort of not designed for short-term pleasure, but long-term enjoyment.
So delaying gratification.
That's one.
Not succumbing to the short-term pleasures.
Absolutely. And also not having to conform to average people, like average peer pressure around you, right? Like, I think...
Don't you think this generation has that in check? Compared to Uday KOTAK in that generation? They were more conformist than the 21-year-olds of today?
I think the 21-year-olds have, if I were to reverse the word of conformity, peer pressure to look the best on social media, to make sure they dress the best, to make sure that they have the best number of posts, to make sure they have the most number of likes.
So you would say social pressure.
Social pressure. That's probably a better word to it. But I think to avoid it to significant extent is a very critical thing because that pressure is so high and so noisy today that it can end up pushing you towards doing things
with no patience.
With no patience.
Underlined. If that is there, at least they can handle all that.
Because, and I grew up in like similar generation. Now, I think 10 years back is already a generation apart. But I think 10 years back, when I was growing up, people around me would look at me and say that the guy's a doc, right? Like absolute doc. Studying all the time, doing business. Who does this when they are 19? And if you get bothered by it, you will lose, in my view, the number one thing that it takes to get an entrepreneurial success or any success, which is perseverance, like being at it for long periods of time. Because there are so many reasons to give up, no? Right?
You should not get one layer under your skin.
So for example, like I told one of my friends ki, मतलब मेरा बरसाती यहाँ पे है, इस मेट्रो स्टेशन से उतर करके ऑटो में आ जाना.
बरसाती यहाँ पर?
In Delhi, बरसाती is like a thatched roof room at the top of a house. So that's where I used to live when I first moved. Like most people who moved to Delhi live there. So, but I had never told him that it's a Barsati because you don't tell it a normal conversation. I just said, मेरा घर जो है यहाँ पर है, आप इस मेट्रो स्टेशन. तो said, मुझे ऑटो में आना पड़ेगा, तुम्हारी गाड़ी नहीं है, right? Like a usual kid. This was a wealthy kid. There were some kids I was trying to not. When I was starting my business in Delhi, a usual kid would have gotten so bothered that they would have stopped calling people to meet themselves. But for me, it was very comfortable. I was very okay with saying that people will say this to me. And if I do well in life, it'll be all right. If not, then this is the means I have. So being okay to let go of social pressure is what I would encourage. And I also got bothered by it a lot of times.
How
but
old was that? When?
I was 19. But I also got bothered by it. But I recognized कि मैं bother होके मिलेगा क्या? अभी जेब में ज़्यादा पैसे तो आ नहीं जाएगा. गाड़ी जैसा आप बता रहे थे ना, what can be worse? तो अभी जो है आप अपनी रियलिटी से
10 में से कितने आ जाते थे?
करेक्ट
आपके बरसाती में?
फिर अपने एंटरप्रेन्योर जनता तो सब आ जाती थी. फिर उसके बाद मैंने अपना वो कहते हैं ना कि मतलब अगर आपकी व्हीकल में प्रॉब्लम है तो आप रास्ता बदल दीजिए. तो हमने वो रास्ता पकड़ लिया जिसमें चलते हुए लोग ज्यादा मिल जाते. तो वो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स मिले. दे वर सिमिलर रेबल्स विदाउट अ कॉज. सो सबसे दोस्ती बन गई.
So, Uday Kotak, you said
So first is
delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification. Second is not social social
Let me
pressure.
put it as indifference is the new cool.
Indifference is the new cool. Absolutely. And the third one is, I think, a sense of humility. And humility in decisions which can be very large. So for example, nowadays when I meet young
Do you
entrepreneurs.
think humility is counterintuitive to self-confidence, which we established as a prerequisite for someone looking to start up?
No, I think they are independent, strong characteristics. I think you
Can you be self-confident and humble?
Yes, you can be self-confident.
Give me
and
a
humble.
for instance.
So self-confident would mean that I can build OYO into an incredible success. Humble is, it's the first time I'm building a hotel business. So I don't know what will go in this journey, but I will figure it out. So I think at least that's my view. But to the third point.
Will you add to the end of that line? Can you help me? His point of no ego, willing to bend your back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll explain an example with Uday Kotak's example, right? He built a fantastic franchise in his previous avatar before the bank. And he started a bill discounting business, if I remember it right. He was okay to add the Mahindra name to the bank, right? He had built a big business. He didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
But he was okay to do it. Nowadays, when I meet entrepreneurs who have just started the business, not all, like 90% of them, like I'm surprised young entrepreneurs can be so bright and they have all these characteristics. But there's some people who have this sense of saying that, a sense of superiority, that I have done so much already. I think for people in that generation like him, like Narayan Murthy and various others, they built incredible businesses, but we're still able to accept that. But in comparison, I'm still a rounding error and I have to do a lot more. And I think that was that humility that allowed them to become, a bigger version of themselves consistently.